Hi, I'm David Hawks, and I'd like to walk you through the Path to Agility Transformation Framework. The premise of why we created the framework is that many organizations are struggling to achieve the full value of agility. We see a lot of organizations. I've been doing the survey for the last year and a half, and we've got 500 organizations who have said that they're doing more superficial agility than fast agility or predictable agility. And we're seeing organizations that are struggling to achieve all the things that agility promises. And Path to Agility provides some guidance around your transformation to assess kind of where you are and where you should focus next, kind of gives you a map of that progress. And it starts with just normal organizational change kind of curves. And when you think about this is tier model, and we start with status quo that introduces us to kind of chaos and resistance, that we get into more integration and practice, and hopefully achieving a new status quo. When we think about an agile transformation, we've got to think about those organizational change frameworks as well as kind of agile maturity patterns. And what we've done with Path to Agility is combine them together. The first stage of Path to Agility is what we call the align stage. And the align stage is focused a lot around, as an organization, why are we changing? Why are we going to introduce this change amongst our people? Because we are going to go through this period of chaos and resistance first, and we need to make sure that everybody's rallied around a compelling why. Too often we hear leaders say that the reason why they're going agile is to be agile. Well, agile is a potential solution that might be the right solution. We want to try and get leaders to talk about their compelling purpose in terms of business outcomes. Why should they go agile? Is it to deliver faster? Is it that we're not responsive enough to the market? So we want to get really focused on a compelling why that would motivate everybody to change and help us get through this change curve. The second stage of Path to Agility is what we call the learn stage. And the learn stage isn't just about learning the terminology or the processes or the practices, but also creating a culture of learning, a dynamic where leaders are empowering the teams, letting go of control and allowing the teams to start taking ownership. And the teams are learning how to own their process and learn how to have good, meaningful retrospectives. And the leaders are learning how to improve the organization and creating things like impediment boards and tracking organizational impediments and figuring out how to improve. That leads us to the third stage, which is the predict stage. And the predict stage is about getting the volatility out of the system. A lot of leaders will tell us that they want to go agile because they want to be faster, but accelerate is our fourth stage, because we believe that if you're not very predictable and you say go faster, you're just adding more volatility to the system. So we want to make sure that we're focused on removing that volatility, reducing the complexity in the system so that we can start to tune it, right? You can only tune what you can measure. And then we can start optimizing the whole flow through the system. And that helps us to start getting to the final stage, which is what we call adapt. And adapt is where true organizational agility comes into play, where you're responding quickly to what the market is demanding, that you're able to pivot based on what's happening with competition in the market. And so we've got these 5 stages. Within those 5 stages, we started to identify what are the business outcomes that we're trying to achieve that will dictate and prioritize the agile outcomes that we're going to do. And those are achieved through agile capabilities by implementing agile practices. One of the biggest mistakes we see organizations making, the biggest anti-pattern of agile transformation today, is that organizations are only focused on the right. They're only focused on implementing practices. And that could be implementing the Scrum framework, that could be implementing SAFe, and they're measuring progress based on have we implemented all the stuff, have we implemented all the practices, which may have led to agility. But what we want to do is see and measure that are the practices enabling capabilities that drive outcomes to help us accomplish the business goals that we have set. So what we've done with Path to Agility is mapped the business outcomes, the agile outcomes, and the agile capabilities level. The way that we've done that is we've identified first these 9 core business outcomes that agility kind of drives towards. And we start with leaders to help prioritize those as our compelling purpose and focus. And then we look at the transformation not only at the team level. Most leaders would say, yeah, come in and help us at the team level. But we also have to look at the system level, the flow of value delivery, the flow of work. Here's where the scaling practices like SAFe come into play. And then that leads to also looking at the organizational level from a leadership perspective, culture perspective, organizational structures, HR and finance practices all come into play. So we've got to look at all three of these levels. And then within that, we've started to map what are all those Agile outcomes that we need to do in order to achieve the business outcomes. And we've got these 30 Agile outcomes that drive down deeper into the capabilities, and they have some dependency on each other. But we can then focus based on the business outcomes we've chosen on which of these that we should do. So the components of Path to Agility Transformation Framework start with those 9 business outcomes. We talked about the 5 stages and the 3 levels, but there's also these 30 Agile outcomes that break down into 100 capabilities that each have over 400 acceptance criteria. And that becomes the depth within Path to Agility. So hopefully this gives you an idea of some of the different elements within Path to Agility. Thank you.